Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Thursday to everybody. Man, it feels like it's been a long time since I've been on here live. So thanks to everybody who's stopped in now. Thanks to everybody who's going to stop in either somewhere through the stream or watch this in a replay. If you're new here, and I forget to do this all the time, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We talk about football on here 24/7, 7 days a week. I think that was redundant, but a few things I want to talk about today. Not all about football, but you can see from the title of the video, I want to talk about some of these high-profile transfers that have taken place. I also want to do a way too early prediction for the conferences. I mean, you can just talk about teams one by one of what's going to happen next year, but I'm going to break it down conference by conference. I'm going to give my opinion on who to look at the top of each conference, and then who maybe will come out of nowhere and make a run for their conference. And, of course, with the 4-team playoff, doesn't guarantee you a spot if you win your conference, but at least if you win your conference, it elevates your chances of getting into the playoffs. So we'll talk about that. But before I do any of that, I do want to just give you some updates, since that's what I do on here before we talk about football. The video I made the other day, I said I wanted to have some people come on and do some recorded videos with fans. Didn't have to be a YouTuber, just fans of any other team, and that's something I'm planning on doing throughout the offseason. I got 6 or 7 requests within 24 hours of me uploading that video, so I want to thank everybody who reached out to me. And I do want to say this, though. So it's just going to be one time a week that I do that, where I have a fan on that's going to call in and talk about the state of their program, the state of their team. Are they happy? Are they pissed? Whatever it is, whatever you want to talk about as far as your team. But I'll be in touch with everybody who contacted me. So I can't do them all in one day. I can't do them all in 1 week. It's going to be a season-long thing. So if you contacted me, hopefully I hit you back. If you haven't contacted me yet and you want to do that, go ahead and do that now. Hit me up on Twitter at Pete Pigskin. I'll hit you back through private message, and we can set something up. So right now, I think I have Alonzo will be the first one to come on. Everybody knows Alonzo 1219, the U family. He's a Miami video maker, and we're going to be setting some up hopefully for this weekend to get together. And then every week after this weekend, next week, the week after that, so on and so forth, hopefully I'll have somebody that's willing to come on and talk about their team. And so just sit tight if you're one of those people. I appreciate everybody for hitting me up on that. Let me see who's in the chat here real quick before we get into some football talk. Good afternoon, Alan V. Says, good morning, Pete and friends. Dennis Wilson, Prince 6'1", Notre Dame Nation. JC69 says, good afternoon, Pete. Good afternoon to you, sir. Irish Panther. Hey, Pete. How you doing, Irish Panther? Southern Buck 352. What's up, Pete? Haven't been on in a while, so congrats on the championship. Well, thank you, sir. I mean, I can't take credit for the championship, but I appreciate your sentiment there, of course. And so before we get into the football talk, this has nothing to do with football, but this is just something. So when I was setting everything up here to get ready to stream, I had on the Joe Rogan podcast or YouTube cast. I don't know what you want to call it. But I don't know if anybody in here is a fan of Joe Rogan's show on YouTube, but it's one of my favorite. I put on the Joe Rogan podcast because they're all like 2 hours long. And he uploads one like pretty much every day of the week during the weekdays. And I listen to it like when I'm mowing the lawn or, whatever, just doing housework or just, messing around, cleaning the car out, whatever it is. I listen to that while I'm just doing stuff with my earphones. But anyway, today I turned it on because I saw a notification come up that Mike Tyson was on Joe Rogan today live right now as we're speaking. I mean, is Mike Tyson not gold on any format? Now, it was even more gold than I even thought it was going to be because I turned it on and was just listening to it in the background. And Mike Tyson was on there talking about how he's starting up this cannabis business. And I guess he lives in California. I'm assuming like LA, where it's legal now. But if you guys haven't heard Joe Rogan or heard this Mike Tyson podcast, after you get done watching this stream or maybe later on tonight or tomorrow or whatever, go watch it. This guy is comedy gold. They started talking about, like, that movie The Hangover where he's got the tiger and they go kidnap the tiger and all that? Well, Mike Tyson actually had like 4 or 5 tigers. He has all this land out there, and he had like 4 or 5 tigers. He had them for like 15 years. And Rogan was like, so what happened to the tigers that you had? He's like, well, I had it for like 15 years, and I had to get rid of them. He's like, well, what do you do with tigers whenever they get old? He's like, well, they had to go to like a sanctuary or something, a sanctuary. And then he's like, so how'd you get into the cannabis business? And he's like, well, I never realized that I'd be able to make money on that. I love cannabis my whole life. And he's like, so when did you start smoking cannabis? And he's like, well, when you're like 10 years old and your mom gives you cannabis and liquor to go to sleep, that's how I got started. He's like, no, your mom gave you liquor and cannabis to go to sleep when you were 10 years old? He's like, yeah, He's like, no, I didn't know that. That didn't happen in my house. Anyway, I was laughing my ass off right before this stream started. Let's see who's on here real quick. The question is, what's next for Clemson after winning the championship? Well, Irish Panther, I would say that Clemson's expectations at this point in time, my expectation for Clemson next year is going to be the same as it was this year, and that is to make it to the national title game. I'm not one of these guys you hear a lot of Alabama fans out there saying, oh, it's always win a national championship or bust. I'm not that guy. Winning a national championship is not easy. I don't care who you are. So that's never my expectation. For the past couple years, my expectation has been to make it to the playoff. This past year, because of what we had coming back on defense and all the incoming guys we had on offense, plus a lot of guys coming back on offense, and how weak the ACC was, my expectation was to make it to the national championship game. My expectation was not to win the national championship. That just ended up happening. So my expectation for next year, considering the quarterback we have, all the weapons that are coming back on offense, considering that the ACC right now as a whole is going to take another year or two to recuperate probably. And we'll get into that in a second because there's a couple of teams in the ACC I think that we need to look out for. But my expectation for Clemson next year is to at least, at the very minimum, make it back to the playoff and hopefully to a national championship game. So that's my expectation. And I see Dennis Wilson. Good afternoon, Dennis Wilson. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. So let's talk about some of these transfers, these high-profile transfers that have happened here. At least one of them happened early in the season, and that was Kelly Bryant. And then, of course, just in the past couple of weeks, we've had Tate Martell transfer out of Ohio State, and he went to Miami. We had Justin Fields transfer out of Georgia, and he went to Ohio State. I mean, this is basically the equivalent of an NFL trade, right? I mean, these guys are trading players. Jacob Eason, he transferred not this past season, but the season before to the University of Washington, so he'll be eligible to play this year. And, of course, Jalen Hurts transferred as a graduate to the University of Oklahoma. Those are I'm guessing, probably the 5 highest profile quarterbacks that have transferred. Now, you can go down, look at Miami, for instance. And I'm not an expert on Miami's roster or anything, and I'll get into all of that with Alonzo whenever I do talk to him. But they've had transfers at wide receiver position, running back. I mean, they've had a bunch of transfers come in there. And I don't want to give away too much about what Miami's doing, but Miami's gathering up a lot of players and a lot of great coaches, and I really think that Miami's got successful. Will they be on an individual level in 2019, and maybe how successful they will be on a team level in 2019? So let's just start with number 5. I would put just out of the 5 I just named, Tate Martell, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Kelly Bryant, and Jacob Eason. Out of those 5 guys, number 5, I would put Justin Fields. Now, does that mean that I think that Justin Fields is the worst out of these 5 quarterbacks? No. But Justin Fields has the least amount of playing time, least amount of experience out of these 5 guys. And that's really what that comes down to. Now, will Justin Fields have a great career at Ohio State? Probably. I'm not going to dispute that. The guy was the number one recruit in the country coming out last year. He's got all the talent in the world. But for him to go to Georgia and hand the ball off 500 times and then transfer to Ohio State immediately, I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to acclimate there. I could be wrong. I don't know. But out of these 5, I'm putting him at number 5. Number 4, I'm going to say Tate Martell. Tate Martell going to Miami is I think it was a good move for him. I know a lot of people don't think so. A lot of Ohio State fans are upset and pissed off and mad about that. But you got to understand, man. Listen, you had Dwayne. This guy's been there 2 years already. He was redshirted his freshman year. His sophomore year, he sat on the bench behind Dwayne Haskins, as he probably should have. Dwayne Haskins was probably, well, no, not probably. He was at least one of the top 3 quarterbacks in all of college football this past season. So you can't fault them for that. And then they bring in the number 1 recruit of the country from the year before from the University of Georgia, and Justin Fields. And Tate Martell's like, you know what? I'm out of here. Now, I don't know Tate Martell from a hole in the wall. I know he's talented. I know he played at Bishop Gorman High School, which is basically like college football light out there and out on the West Coast. And he's a very talented guy. And when he did play at Ohio State this past year, he had good numbers, but he didn't play a whole lot. But I don't blame the guy for leaving. But I think that he's got a good upside. And since he's experienced, this is his 3rd year in college football. And he's going to a place, Miami, who's going to have a lot of weapons. And the competition in the ACC Coastal is not, great on a week-to-week basis. So I think he'll have a lot of success. So number 4, I put Tate Martell. Number 3 on that list, I put Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason at the University of Washington. A lot of the same reasons why I say Tate Martell will have success, both personally and on a team level. Eason, this guy's amazing. The only reason this guy, well, actually, I don't even know. Somebody can let me know. If you're a Georgia fan out there, somebody give me a reason why Jacob Eason was benched in favor of Jake Fromm. Now, I know Jacob Eason had, I think, maybe an injury problem, and then Fromm came in for him, and they just couldn't bench him after that. But anyway, Eason out at Washington. Eason is a pocket passing quarterback, one of the best pocket passing quarterbacks to come out of high school in a long time. And he's going to fit very well into that Pac-12 style of offense. And again, the Pac-12 is not a whole lot of competition. So I think Eason is one to look at. And this guy's, what's this guy, like 21 years old? By the time this guy graduates, he's going to be like 30. He's going to be like Hunter Renfrow. So I put Eason at number 3 on that list. Number 2, I put Kelly Bryant. And this is probably more on a individual level than it is on a team level. And I already can see, I posted a video about Bryant when he transferred to Missouri fans. And man, Missouri fans, the ones that didn't even exist or the ones that I didn't even knew existed, came out of the woodwork killing me in the comment section. These guys got so offended that I thought that Kelly Bryant was going to Auburn instead of Missouri because Auburn's a better football team. They went on to tell me how many quarterbacks they put in the draft. Drew Lock and Blaine Gabbert. Hello? Missouri's not a powerhouse. I'm sorry. I know you might have some great individual players, but the roster from top to bottom at Missouri is not excellent. And I wish Kelly Bryant the best. I wish Missouri the best. I'll be rooting for them. I realize you've got, what's his name? Derek Dooley, as an offensive coordinator. He came from the Cowboys, and before that, he ran Tennessee into the ground. We all know the history with Derek Dooley. I think Kelly Bryant, with his experience, will do very well at Missouri. Maybe individually, I'm not so sure about as a team because, let's face it, Missouri is probably the 4th best team in the SEC, and I'm sure they're going to come on here and tell me, no, we're going to win the East, or no, we're just there, right there with Georgia. Whatever. Prove it. I don't want to hear it. But I think Kelly Bryant, just as far as his experience and coming from a program like Clemson, will have a lot of success at Missouri, and I wish him the best. Number 1 on the list, Jalen Hurts. Now, this is a no-brainer because out of all these teams I just named, Miami, Ohio State, Washington, Missouri, Oklahoma is loaded on offense, and they have probably the best offensive head coach. I'm not saying the best offensive coordinator or even the best offense, but they have the best offensive head coach in football right now. in Lincoln Riley. And it's sort of a plug-and-play situation. And we all know the Big 12 defenses, for the most part, not every defense in the Big 12 is bad, but for the most part, they're not on the level of most of the other conferences. And Hurts is a winner. Look, it is what it is. The guy's 26-2 as a starter. The only reason he got benched is because Tua Tagovailoa came along, and Tua Tagovailoa is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football. And I'd say Hurts is definitely in the top 10 or 15 in football. And same thing with Kelly Bryant, but that's no knock on him. But I think that Hurts in Oklahoma's system, in the Big 12, will succeed. His experience, his leadership, his development as a passer over the past couple years, his running ability, all those things will translate to Hurts having a great season. And I've even had some people come on. I made that video yesterday as soon as we found out that Hurts was transferring to Oklahoma. I got mixed messages from both Oklahoma and Alabama fans. Oklahoma fans saying they're glad to have him. They think he'll do great there. Other Oklahoma fans saying that they think that they're not happy. That they want to go with the other guy. What's the other guy's name? I don't even know his name. Not Spencer Rattler, but the other guy. And I think he just transferred to West Virginia, so that's a moot point. But I think Hurts will do good. So there you go. There you have it, folks. There's my top 5 list. And I have Hurts at number 1, Brian at number 2, Eason at number 3, Martell at number 4, and Justin Fields at number 5. And before I get into the next subject here, I'll see what you guys got to say about or what you don't have to say in the comment section here. Ryan Reedley, good afternoon to you, sir. Thomas Nolte, good afternoon. Pete, good afternoon to you. Miami is getting wrecked week 1, Dennis. Yeah, says Ryan. Falcons Fury, what's up, man? What's up, Pete? Happy ham sandwich day. Yes, every day is ham sandwich day for you, isn't it, sir? What's up, Brandon Rogers? Says, yo, Pete. Yo, Brandon. Eason got hurt game 1, and Fromm was way too much better to take out when Eason was ready to play. That being said, Eason had a whole year as a starter as a freshman. Yeah, Eason's a gifted passer, and I think he's going to fit right into that Washington offense. Listen. The truth of the matter is, Eason was probably better built for a Washington Pac-12 offense from the get-go than he was somewhere at like Georgia. And it's just the way I feel about it. What's up, Border Bob? When the Chickens hire a new coach at the end of the season, who do you think may be able to attract with some new facilities and all? Border Bob, that's a good question because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, honestly. And here's the reality. Over the past couple of hiring cycles, what has South Carolina done? They went after Lou Holtz, right? A washed-up coach who was a national championship winner. They were, I guess, thinking that maybe he'd bring his magic from Notre Dame back in the 80s to South Carolina. Didn't work. Steve Spurrier, who never really cared about South Carolina in the first place. He's always a Florida guy. As a matter of fact, as soon as the guy ran the program into the ground, he ran right back to Florida and got on the board there. Same sort of thing. And then after Steve Spurrier runs the program into the ground, they go on a coaching search and they hire what was probably like their 8th or 9th choice in Will Muschamp, who's been a proven loser as a head coach at Florida. And we see what's going on there now. So I don't know, man. It's hard to say. I think the new facilities will help South Carolina. That never hurts. It never hurts in recruiting. My opinion about what South Carolina needs to do has always been the same, and it's going to be the same until they actually do it. Stop going after washed-up coaches who have a history. Yes, Lou Holtz was washed up. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings if you're a Notre Dame fan. Yes, Steve Spurrier was washed up. I'm sorry if that hurts your fans if you're a Florida fan. But it is what it is, and Will Muschamp was washed up before he ever set one single foot in Columbia. Get a young guy who maybe doesn't even have any head coaching experience, preferably maybe a coach who has a history at South Carolina, whether he's a former player or a former young coach. Look, you see this going on at a lot of different schools, right? You see Nebraska hire Scott Frost. A lot of these places are hiring former players that are young guys that have a vision for the program for long term, and they're not just there because they got fired from somewhere else and couldn't hack it, or just trying to collect a big fat paycheck and building their resume as a head coach in the SEC. So I don't know. Ask me whenever they fire Muschamp, and I'm sure at that time there'll be a list of people that are possible suitors, and I'll give you my opinion then. But my opinion is not going to change on what I think they need to do, and it's going to be a young coach. Muschamp isn't getting fired after next season. College Football Maniac says, I disagree. I think he will. We'll see. I don't want Ian Book to be Irish quarterback next year because Phil Jurevich is better. I have no idea who Phil Jurevich is, but I'll look into it, sir, and I'll take your word for it as well. Muschamp has done away better at South Carolina than he'd done at Florida. No, he hasn't. College Football Maniac, you know I love you, sir. You're my favorite Gamecock fan of all of them, and that's a very short list, by the way, but you're at the top of it. But at Florida, he had an 11-win season there. He coached there 3 years, right? He coached at South Carolina 3 years. I think he has the same amount of wins at Florida as he does at South Carolina. So I don't know. I don't think he's done any better. I think it's about the same. Falcons Fury, Dan Mullen is about to go beat by his ex-DC man. Yeah, okay. All right, so that brings me to my next thing, since Dennis Wilson's just going to be a troll. Let's look at the Power 5 conferences, and I'll give you my opinion on who to look out for as far as who's most likely to win the conference and who the team is that's just below them to look out to maybe make a run at winning the conference, or at least their division at that point. Let's start with the Big Ten. I went back and forth with this, with the Big Ten. But I'm not going to stray from my logic. The same logic I've been using for the past, 4 or 5 years since Harbaugh got hired. I'm not a believer in Harbaugh. I know that Michigan fans come on here and they think I hate Michigan. They think I have something against them. All you do is say bad things about Michigan. No, I could care less. I'm not a Big Ten fan. I'm not an Ohio State fan. Listen, I'm not a Michigan fan. I could care less. I have no skin in the game whatsoever. I just go by what my eyes and my brain tell me. And my eyes and my brain tell me that I'm not a believer in Harbaugh until he does it. Now, if he's going to do it at any point, this would be the year to do it. Because Urban Meyer's got both feet out the door, and this guy's laying in a hospital bed somewhere with headaches. So this is the year, if you're a Michigan fan, to prove Pigskin Pete wrong, and the rest of the country for that matter. I'm still sticking with Ohio State. I still think they have the most talent. I like what they did with their hire. I mean, you can't replace Urban Meyer. I mean, this guy's won 3 national championships. He's probably one of the best coaches in the history of modern football as far as wins are concerned. So nobody, whether you love or hate the guy, you can't take that away from him. But I think that they're loaded in talent. I think they made a very good decision in promoting from within with Ryan Day. And I think they're still the team to beat in the Big Ten until somebody proves me wrong. Now, the next team behind them, it's easy to say, would be Michigan. I'm just going to go to the West, the Big Ten West, because the Big Ten West is a lot like the ACC Coastal. It's wide open. You never know who's going to win that thing from year to year. Hell, Northwestern won it this year. I'm going to say Nebraska is a team to look out for. Now, before you start typing in the comment section or in the chat here that Nebraska is way off of being a relevant team, I get it. I understand all that. But I'm still a believer in Scott Frost. I will be, at least for the next couple of years until he proves me wrong. I think Nebraska has as good a chance to win the Big Ten West as just about every other team in the Big Ten West, and that includes Wisconsin, Northwestern, and hell, the rest of them, whoever they are, Iowa State, whatever. Iowa State's in the Big 12. But that's my dark horse. Look out for Nebraska to make some noise in the Big Ten West. Don't at me. The SEC. Obviously, Alabama. Have you ever seen a group of coaches run out of a program quicker than all the coordinators did at Alabama this year. And I know every year, every year all the coordinators leave Alabama and they go get head coaching jobs. You got Jeremy Pruitt, you got Kirby Smart, you got all these coaches that leave and go take other jobs. Hell, you got these guys leaving, just going and taking the Browns job. You got coaches leaving and going to take the Maryland job. You got coaches leaving to go to be the offensive coordinator at Miami. I don't even know if there's a single coordinator left on that entire team that was there this year. But Alabama's Alabama, Nick Saban's Nick Saban, and they will be there every year. Go ahead and write it down. Tattoo it on your forehead if you have to, but if you tattoo it on your forehead, make sure you tattoo it backwards so when you look in the mirror it reads correctly. Alabama will be at least in the SEC championship game most likely, no matter what. I don't care who the coordinators are, as long as Saban's there. Yeah, Butch Jones. Now, right behind Alabama in the SEC, you have a handful of teams. Obviously, Georgia has proven themselves to be that second-best team in the SEC, for at least for the past couple of years, and I don't see that going away. They're still recruiting at a high level, and Georgia's good. So I put Georgia right there below them to make a run for the SEC. Up-and-coming teams to look out for, Florida. Yes, Florida. I know they haven't proven anything. I know they've got Frankie, whatever his name is, at quarterback. I still think that Florida is going to be at least in contention for the East. I'm not going to say they're going to win the East because obviously that's going to be Georgia is favored for that. But look out for Florida. They can make some noise in the SEC East. And in the West, I've been saying this since before the season started, and after this past season, it just confirmed everything I already believed. And that is, keep an eye out for Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. Now, there's other teams in the West that could still make some noise. I mean, LSU exceeded my expectations this year, and most people's, I think, unless you're an LSU homer. Auburn's always going to be there just because of talent, but Auburn's schizophrenic team that you never really know what they're going to do. But I'm saying that Texas A&M, in my estimation, will be the team to beat outside of Alabama for the next decade as long as Jimbo Fisher's there. Jimbo Fisher is a piece of crap human being. He's a lying snake oil car salesman that I wouldn't piss on if he was on fire. But he's one hell of a recruiter, one hell of a developer of talent, and one hell of an on-the-field football coach. And Texas A&M has all the money and resources as far as boosters and everything else, facilities, stadium. I mean, they've got everything that you need to be successful at A&M. The only thing they've been lacking for the past 10 years or so is an elite head coach, and Jimbo Fisher is a piece of crap, but he's an elite head coach. A&M is the one to look out for. I think that probably by the end of next season and for years to come, as long as there's no scandal there and he doesn't get fired or quit or get arrested for stealing crab legs with Jameis Winston, they'll be the team to beat. The ACC. Oh, man, the ACC. Do you remember the good old days? You remember the good old days when Florida State was good? I remember that. Does anybody remember that? Man, it seems like so long ago. Bobby Bowden out there with his Coke bottle sunglasses. A tan so dark, he looked Mexican. Winning every game, blowing through the ACC like it was no problem. Oh, man, those were the good old days. Well, the times have changed, and now the ACC is Clemson and everybody else. Time to catch up, folks. I'll be rooting for you. I promise I will. I put my reputation on the line on YouTube as far as backing the ACC, and all you've done is let me down. Except for Virginia, though. They didn't let me down, though, did they? 28-0. 28-0 against the Boom Chickens. Anyway, so it's Clemson and everybody else right now. The only team I really see making some noise next year is going to be Miami. And that's a big if, but I really like what Miami's doing. I like the Manny Diaz hire. I like the offensive coordinator hire, the quarterback coach from Alabama. I like the acquisition of Tate Martell. I mean, Miami's always, even this year, they had a top 5 defense in America. Their problem is really mainly surrounded around the quarterback position. As far as personnel goes, or at least this year it was, and of course, Mark Richt was a terrible play caller and a terrible decision maker, but he's gone now. So I think that Miami, aside from a complete meltdown, should not have a problem winning the ACC Coastal Division this year. Now, that means they still have to go through Clemson in the ACC title game. I don't see that happening this year, but I still think Miami is going to make a lot of improvement this year. So that's it. That's it. I mean, I don't know. NC State, they're losing probably their best quarterback in the past 10 years, and Ryan Finley. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in NC State. Georgia Tech has a new coach, which they're not relevant anyway, so I don't even know why I'm mentioning them. Louisville's got a long way to go to get back to their Lamar Jackson heyday of a couple of years ago. So Louisville, I'm sorry, you're not in it. Boston College is one of those teams that's always going to be one of those teams that's hard to beat, but not competing for the conference or anything like that. North Carolina with Mac Brown, if they're going to do anything, it's going to take a couple of years. I mean, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a legendary coach to come in there and turn that thing around in 1 year. So, but I think North Carolina is one to look at in the future, but not this year. So there you go. I mean, who else is there? Somebody, Wake Forest. Sorry, I mean they have a great head coach, but how do you recruit to Wake Forest in football? I mean, it's just, what the Wake Forest coach has done there has been pretty amazing considering the talent they have. So I think he's a great coach, but Wake Forest isn't going to make any noise. So who else is left in the ACC? So, no. Yeah, Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame is the second best ACC team. Second best ACC team. All right, who's next on the list? The Big 12. All right. The way I see the Big 12 working out is it's still Oklahoma. Texas, I think, could shock people, and that's it. That pretty much ends my list. Oklahoma and then Texas. Can Texas take that step up and surpass Oklahoma? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But outside of Oklahoma and Texas, I'm not. I mean, I went out on the limb last year and said, "Oh, TCU is going to be the one to win the Big 12. You guys watch out, TCU. Gary Patterson." TCU was terrible. Baylor, they're so buried in sanctions over Art Briles' scandal. They might not see light until 2030 if they're lucky. Iowa State's a hard place to play, though. Everyone tells me that. Yeah, okay. Iowa, yeah, sorry, you're not winning it either. Not Iowa, Iowa State. Oklahoma State, who knows what they're going to do year to year. I mean, I don't think they're going to win the Big 12 until that guy cuts his mullet off. I could be wrong about that. West Virginia, you got transfer quarterback from Oklahoma, right? But you're losing Will Grier. You lost your head coach. No continuity there. Take a couple of years for them to get back on track. So it is Oklahoma and then Texas and everybody else. Don't at me on that either. Nice mug. What is my mug? Oh, yeah, Virginia's for lovers. In case you didn't know that. Thank you, by the way. All right, so the Pac-12, the last one on this list. Man, the Pac-12 is terrible. But I will say this, though. There is hope on the West Coast. That hope comes in the form of a duck. Oregon. Now, this might be the biggest dark horse team to watch out for at all of the Power 5 conferences. We all know who the good ones are: Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. I mean, you know who they are. Ohio State, Michigan. Oregon is going to be the team that I think, I really think this. Go ahead and write it down. What's today? What's today's date? The January 17th. Thursday, January 17th, 2019. Hell, it's a good another 8 months until the kickoff of the season. I want you all to remember this. Save this video. because in December, 12 months from now or 11 months from now, I'm going to need you to go back and watch this video over again and come and tell me how right I was. Oregon is going to be the team that wins the Pac-12 outright and makes the college football playoff. Did you hear that? Oregon's making the playoff next year. Justin Herbert's coming back. Their head coach. The best thing Oregon ever did was get rid of Willie Taggart and promote Mario Cristobal. They have a top, 6 recruiting class in the country. Oregon's got things rolling. They got the number 1 overall prospect, too. The defensive guy. Oregon's going to make the playoff. I'm convinced of it, unless barring some sort of injury. Now, outside of Oregon, there's a couple of other teams that I think can make some noise. Obviously, Washington, for a lot of the reasons I already explained. Washington's been there. They've been at the top of the Pac-12 for the past few years. They lose what's-his-face, who cares? But he played there for like 50 years. And now they have Eason. So Eason could be the X factor as far as Washington goes. Washington has one of the best defenses in the Pac-12. But so that'd be interesting to watch between Oregon and Washington, who can win the North. And then, of course, you always have Southern Cal in the South, rearing their ugly head. I'm not a believer in Southern Cal's head coach. And, of course, they hired Cliff Kingsbury to be their offensive coordinator. This guy took the job 2 days later, quit the job, and took the head coaching job at Arizona in the NFL. If Cliff Kingsbury had stayed and was the offensive coordinator at Southern Cal, I would have probably the most talented roster in the Pac-12 just because of who they are and where they are. But again, I'm not a big believer in their head coach, and until he can show me something different, I'm not going to jump on that train. So Oregon is the team, as far as I'm concerned, to beat in the Pac-12. See what you guys are talking about here. The playoff committee should have sent Georgia to the playoff instead of Notre Dame. What a joke. Wow. Well, we saw what happened to Georgia in the bowl game, didn't we, sir? And Georgia finished the season with 3 losses. So I don't know what you've been smoking, but maybe you could send some to me. I'll put my P.O. box in the description. You can send me some of what you're smoking, because it's obviously some good stuff. Kavion Thibodeau, yeah, thank you. My goal is to make a bowl game with an actual winning record, says the Hound Dog. Tennessee, yes, I think you will. I do think you will. I think Tennessee's, listen, I don't want to sound harsh or anything when I say this. It's not that much harder to improve if you're Tennessee. There's only one way to go up for Tennessee, and that's up. And so, but I do think that Tennessee will win. I nailed it last year. I said Tennessee's going to be a 5-win team. They won 5 games, right? I think this next year Tennessee will be a 7 to 8-win team, which will be a massive improvement. And yeah, there you go. USC goes 7-5 again and wins the bowl game. I don't know about that. Notre Dame should join a conference. Yes, that's a dead horse that I've been beating for, well, forever. So I agree with that, but I understand why they don't. And it's going to take a year or two where they win 11 or 12 games, or at least 11, because if they win 12 games, they're going to get in. We've already learned that. But they did deserve to be in the playoff this year. I'm not going to argue with anybody about that. The results speak for themselves, right? They played 10 Power 5 teams, which is the same that Clemson played, the same that Alabama played, the same that anybody that was in the playoffs played. Won all of them. And yeah, they got ran over by Clemson, but so did Alabama. So, it is what it is. And Notre Dame's not going to join a conference anytime soon until I see probably about 1 or 2 cycles of going 11-1 and getting left out before that happens. They love being independent, man. I don't understand it, but I'm not a Notre Dame fan, so of course I don't understand it. They seem to understand it. They have their own feelings about tradition and this and that, and I mean, who am I to tell them they're wrong about whatever they feel? I mean, they're the fans, not us. I have all the bragging rights in here because Notre Dame won 11 titles, says Notre Dame Nation. Okay. I mean, I don't even want to go down that road with you, sir. I'm just not going to do it. You sound like an Alabama fan. 18. Well, how many titles they say they have? 16, 18. It doesn't matter. Anything before 1960, I consider completely irrelevant to the conversation. Number one. Number two is, I don't care if you won 100 national titles. What have you done in the past 10 years? At least, I mean, at minimum, because that's all that's relevant to now. I think what's cool about Notre Dame is you get experience all these different teams and atmospheres, says the Crow and Cock. Listen, I understand all that. I get it. I had Always Irish on, and he explained all that to me, and I completely understand all that. I had to put myself in the shoes of a college football fan of a major program like Notre Dame, who's going to be in the conversation most years for the playoff. And as a fan, my number one goal is I want to make the playoff and I want to win titles. That's it. Now, that's not going to happen every year for every team. There's only 4 playoff spots. There's 130 Division I teams. I get all that. Okay? I'm not crazy. I understand it. But what gives me the best chance to get in the playoff and win a title? Period. That's it. And being independent does not give you the best chance to do that. So, it is what it is. All right. And listen, if they're happy going 11-1 and getting left out of the playoffs, that's on them. That's their problem, not mine. What's up, SEC dog? Hey, Pete, I can't wait to get Notre Dame in Athens. They are a joke, and they'll never go 15-0 until they join a conference. SEC dog, yeah. Well, first of all, they'll never go 15-0, period, like you said, because they won't have 15 games. But that'll be what week is that? That'll be I'm sure that'll be where game day is, or depending on what other games are on that week. But yeah, anytime Notre Dame comes to the Southeast, it's going to be a great game. I went to the Notre Dame Clemson game in 2015. It was epic and amazing, and I suggest whatever you have to do to make it happen to get tickets to that game. If you're a Georgia fan and go to that game, it'll be awesome. No matter what happens. Notre Dame fans travel well because there's so many of them around the country, and they're very loud and opinionated. So it makes for an interesting tailgate, to say the least. I think what the problem with our fans is we have goals of going to the playoff, not 9-3. I don't think we'll ever go to the Crow and Cock. I want to just go ahead and commend you, sir. I want to commend you for being realistic and saying what I've been saying for years now. And that is, I realize South Carolina's never won anything. They've never won. They won one conference championship, and that was like 60 years ago when they were in the ACC in 1969. I realize they've never won the SEC since they've joined the SEC like 30 years ago. I realize they only have one SEC East title since they joined the SEC. But despite all the failures of the University of South Carolina's football program, your goal should be to win the SEC. Now, that might be an unattainable goal next year or the year after or whenever. I don't care. If I'm a fan, my goal is to win the SEC and try to go to the playoff. Period. End of story. Cancel Christmas. That's it. So I agree with you. Settling for 9-3, 7-5, 8-4, 6-6, year after year after year after year after year, and saying, "Oh well, Will Muschamp, he's got things." No, stop it. Set your goals higher. You know that old saying when you're like in fifth grade, they set your goals high. You might not reach your goal, but at least you'll be higher than if you didn't set your goal. That's what South Carolina needs to do. Set your goals higher than you can reach, and at least you'll maybe overachieve. Stop settling for 9-3. Stop settling for Will Muschamp. Or don't. And I'll have endless material on this YouTube channel to make fun of you. Either way is fine with me. When Notre Dame started 12-0 in 2012 and 2018, they lost the BCS championship and the college football playoff semifinal by a combined score of 72-17. Yes. Yes. JC69 says Alabama is done. Dabo put a fork in them. They will never recover from. I would have to respectfully disagree with that. I don't think Alabama's done. I don't think Alabama's done until the day Nick Saban walks out of the door. So, anyway, thank you. Yeah, I got to go. I came on a few minutes early because I had to get off a few minutes early. Thank you to everybody. I'll be in touch with everybody who's contacted me about wanting to come on to talk about their teams. Uncle Lou. I actually did have a Happy Meal. Hey, Uncle Lou, I want to let everybody know this too. I'm glad you reminded me about that before I get off. About the situation at the White House with Donald Trump and the Happy Meals and the pizza and whatever else they had. I don't know what else they had. A bunch of fast food, right? Can anybody, and I'll actually give a prize to the first person that can let me know this. Does anybody know what dinner was served at the White House for Alabama last year when they won the title? I'll give you about 10 seconds to type it. The answer is they weren't served dinner because it's not a dinner. They got served nothing. Yes, cookies, I think it was. Finger foods. Maybe some celery and ranch. I don't know. I don't know what the budget was then back then, but yeah. So burgers is a far, far better meal than cookies. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Billy Dawson, Tiger Nation, my man, for signing up for the Patreon page. Everybody hit the like. If you want to support the channel, there's a link in the description of this video to the Patreon page. Go ahead and sign up for that. It takes you 5 minutes. You can read about the benefits of doing that. And I will be doing some upgrades on that here in the next few weeks. I'll be in touch with everybody who contacted me as far as the videos go for your team. Keep an eye out this weekend. I'll be hooking up with Alonzo1219, the U family, to talk about Miami football. So, Dennis Wilson, you need to make sure you check around for that, sir. So he can teach you a few things about Miami football since you don't know anything. I guess that's it. Have a great day, everybody. Pigskin Pete, checking out.